confirmed that some DNA evidence, I'm reading this exactly because I want to get exactly what I got from my source right. Some DNA evidence from Nancy Guthrie's home has been sent to the FBI's lab for advanced analysis. I'm told that the evidence includes hairs found in Guthrie's home.
What if I told you that Nancy's case is no longer just a kidnapping? This case is now breaking from the inside, because what the FBI just revealed isn't just DNA evidence. It's a family secret, one that may have been hidden for years. And here's the most shocking part. This DNA doesn't look like it belongs to a stranger. No, sources are now claiming it may belong to someone connected to the home, someone who was there, someone who was trusted, and possibly someone no one ever thought to question. Think about that. If this is true, then what happened to Nancy didn't start outside the house. It started inside it. And that's where things take a dark turn. Because insiders are saying the FBI didn't just test the DNA. They tried to match it. And what they found has completely shaken the investigation. Now, the question is no longer what happened to Nancy. The real question is, who was close enough to do this and still stay out of suspicion? And trust me, what comes next changes everything. To understand why this case is suddenly taking such a dark and unexpected turn, you have to go back to the beginning, before the headlines, before the FBI stepped in, and long before the DNA changed everything. Because Nancy wasn't just a random name in the news. She was the center of a family that, from the outside, looked stable, successful, almost untouchable. Everything about their public image felt controlled, clean, carefully presented. But as we've seen time and time again, it's always the stories that look perfect on the surface that hide the deepest cracks underneath. And according to multiple insider claims, those cracks were already there long before Nancy disappeared. We're talking about quiet tension, unspoken disagreements, moments that didn't make it to social media, but were noticed by people close enough to see what was really going on. At the center of it all was her daughter, Savannah, a well-known public figure, someone used to being in front of cameras, delivering calm, composed narratives to millions of viewers. But insiders are now questioning whether that same level of control existed behind closed doors, or if it was all just a carefully maintained image. Because in the weeks leading up to Nancy's disappearance, something changed. Friends reportedly noticed distance, calls that weren't returned, plans that were suddenly canceled.
They sent it to the FBI is interesting to me because they don't have the technology to extract SNPs from rootless hair. And I am assuming it's rootless hair because if it had a root, it would be really quite straightforward. And the lab in Florida would have already done that. And maybe the case would already be solved.
And conversations that felt off, not explosive, not obvious, but enough to make people wonder if something deeper was happening beneath the surface. Still, nothing could have prepared anyone for what came next. The night Nancy vanished. No signs of forced entry. No loud struggle. No immediate evidence pointing to an outsider. Just a house that looked almost untouched. And that detail alone confused investigators from the very beginning. Because cases like this usually leave something behind. A broken lock, a shattered window, a trace of movement. But here, there was nothing obvious, which led to the first major question. If no one forced their way in, then how did this happen? And more importantly, was Nancy alone when it did? At first, investigators followed the standard path. They looked outward. Neighbors were questioned. Surveillance footage was reviewed. Anyone who had been near the area became a potential lead. But days turned into weeks, and those leads went nowhere. No suspect, no clear timeline, just speculation. And slowly, the case started to stall, until the DNA entered the picture. At first, it didn't seem like much. Reports described it as a mixed sample, complicated, difficult to analyze, the kind of evidence that takes time and often leads to dead ends. So publicly, it wasn't treated as a breakthrough. But behind the scenes, that wasn't the full story. Because according to leaked information, investigators didn't ignore that DNA. They became focused on it, obsessed with it, because something about it didn't make sense. It didn't fit the narrative of a random intruder. It didn't point clearly in any one direction. But what it did suggest was far more unsettling. It suggested familiarity. And that's when the tone of the investigation began to shift, quietly, without public attention.
And so before, I'm trying to make sure I understand you correctly. So before, when there was hair found that didn't have the root, it was just deemed to not really be that useful, and that has now changed?
Yes, so you could get mitochondrial DNA from it only. Mitochondrial DNA can be good for helping to rule people out. It's not so good for ruling people in because so many people share the same profile.
Because once that possibility was introduced, everything had to be reconsidered. Who had access to the house? Who had been there recently? Who could move through that space without raising suspicion? And suddenly, the list of possibilities didn't expand. It narrowed, which is exactly when the FBI stepped in. Not loudly, not publicly, but strategically. They took control of the DNA evidence and sent it for advanced analysis. And that alone told insiders one thing. This wasn't routine anymore. This was serious. Because the FBI doesn't just step in unless there's something worth looking deeper into. And now, for the first time since the case began, they finally acknowledged that DNA. But instead of giving answers, they've created even more questions. Because if what sources are claiming is true, then this case was never just about finding someone who broke in. It's about uncovering something that may have already been inside all along. And now the biggest question isn't just what happened to Nancy. It's this. Was the truth overlooked, or was it deliberately kept hidden? And if it was hidden, then who was protecting it? Everything up to this point was confusion, uncertainty, a case that felt like it was slipping further away with every passing day. But the moment the DNA results reached federal analysts, that confusion turned into something else entirely. Concern. Because according to multiple insider claims, the FBI didn't treat this sample like routine evidence. They flagged it immediately, and that's where the real conflict begins. You see, this wasn't just about identifying a suspect anymore. It was about understanding why this DNA didn't behave like it should. At first glance, it was described as a mixed sample, DNA from multiple individuals, tangled together in a way that made it difficult to separate. That alone isn't unusual. Homes are full of mixed DNA. Family members, visitors, workers, everyone leaves something behind. But this sample, it stood out because when analysts began isolating the strands, something unexpected happened. A partial profile started to form. Not complete. Not enough to name someone outright, but enough to suggest a pattern, a connection. And that's when the tension inside the investigation reportedly exploded, because this pattern didn't point outward. It didn't resemble a random offender. It didn't align with any known criminal database hits. Instead, it hinted at something far more dangerous, a possible familial link. Now think about what that means. If the DNA shares similarities with someone inside Nancy's circle, then investigators aren't just looking for an intruder anymore. They're looking at someone who already belonged in that space. Someone who wouldn't trigger alarms. Someone who wouldn't need to force entry. And suddenly the entire case flips. Because now the question isn't who broke in, it's who never had to. According to a leaked internal note that surfaced briefly online before being deleted, one analyst allegedly wrote, "This profile is not consistent with an unknown external subject." That single line was enough to send shockwaves through the team, because it implied something no one wanted to say out loud, that the answer might not be outside the house, but already inside it. And this is where the first twist hits hard. Sources claim that once this possibility was raised, investigators quietly began re-examining everyone connected to Nancy, not publicly, not officially, but behind the scenes. Family members, close contacts, anyone who had access to the home in the days leading up to her disappearance. And that process didn't stay quiet for long, because leaks started happening. Small at first, a comment here, a vague post there. But then one anonymous account dropped something that changed everything. It claimed that one individual close to the family had already been informally flagged for further DNA comparison. No name, no confirmation, but enough to ignite chaos. Because once that idea hit the internet, people started connecting dots. Old interviews resurfaced, statements were replayed, and every detail began to feel suspicious. Why did certain timelines feel unclear? Why did some reactions seem overly controlled? Why were certain questions never directly answered? And just like that, public perception began to shift. What was once sympathy started turning into doubt. But here's where it gets even more intense. Because while all of this was happening online, something else was happening behind closed doors. According to insiders, the FBI didn't stop at the initial analysis. They escalated it, requesting deeper genetic comparison, more advanced sequencing, the kind of testing that isn't done unless there's a real possibility of identifying someone specific. And that move alone raised a terrifying possibility. They weren't just exploring a theory anymore. They were following a direction, which brings us to the most chilling part of this entire twist. Because if the DNA truly points to someone within Nancy's circle, then this wasn't random. This wasn't chance. This was proximity, access, opportunity, and possibly intention. And yet no arrests, no official suspects, no names released, which means one thing. Whatever the FBI is seeing, they're not ready to say it out loud. At least not yet. But the silence, it's not calming anyone down. It's doing the opposite. It's making everything feel heavier, more real, more dangerous. Because now, for the first time since Nancy disappeared, people aren't just asking what happened. They're asking who was close enough to make it happen without ever being suspected. And if that answer is already hidden inside the DNA, then the next reveal might change everything. The moment the FBI publicly acknowledged the DNA, everything exploded. What was once a quiet investigation suddenly turned into a full-blown media storm. News outlets began rewriting their headlines. This was no longer just a missing person case. Now it was something far more disturbing. A case possibly tied to someone inside the family's own circle. And the internet? It lost control. Within hours, clips from past interviews started resurfacing. People were replaying every statement, analyzing every reaction, zooming in on body language, tone shifts, even the smallest pauses. Because now, nothing felt innocent anymore. Everything felt like it could mean something. But then came the moment that pushed this case into an entirely different level. A second leak, more detailed, more specific, and far more dangerous. According to this insider, the DNA didn't just suggest a general connection. It allegedly pointed towards someone who'd been actively involved in the case from day one. Someone who spoke publicly. Someone who showed concern. Someone who stood in front of cameras and asked for answers. Now imagine hearing that, and then going back to watch those same interviews. Suddenly, every word feels different. Every expression feels calculated. And that's exactly what the internet started doing. One viral post read, "Go back and watch everything again, you'll see it now." And people did. Millions of views flooded old clips overnight. Comment sections turned into investigations of their own. This doesn't feel genuine anymore. Why were they so composed? Why avoid certain details? And just like that, public sympathy started turning into suspicion. But the real shock hadn't even hit yet. Because just as all of this was unfolding, a new report surfaced that changed everything again. Investigators were allegedly re-examining earlier statements made by multiple individuals close to Nancy, not just reviewing them, but cross-checking them against the DNA timeline. Let that sink in. That means they're not just looking at evidence anymore. They're looking at behavior, consistency, possible contradictions. And when investigators reach that stage, it's no longer about if something is wrong. It's about figuring out exactly where the story breaks. And here's the part that should make you pause. Because according to sources, there are already inconsistencies being looked at. Small ones, but enough to matter. Enough to raise questions. And once those questions start stacking up, they don't just disappear. They lead somewhere. And right now, that direction is getting clearer, closer, and a lot more uncomfortable. Because if the DNA, the timeline, and the statements don't align, then this case isn't just unsolved. It's been misunderstood from the very beginning. And the next reveal might not just shock the public. It might expose someone no one ever expected. The moment this narrative shifted, the internet didn't just react. It split in half. On one side, you had people defending the family with everything they had, calling the rumors reckless, dangerous, completely out of control. These are real people going through something traumatic. One viral comment read, "Stop turning this into a conspiracy." And for a moment, that side felt loud, dominant. But then the other side started pushing back, hard, because for them, the DNA changed everything. This isn't random anymore. Another post fired back. If there's a connection, we deserve answers. And just like that, the comment sections turned into battlegrounds. Thousands of replies, threads going miles deep, people debating timelines, statements, behavior, breaking everything down like they were part of the investigation themselves. But what really pushed this into chaos was when influencers and major content creators started stepping in. Big names, millions of followers. And instead of dismissing the situation, they leaned into it. I've been following this case from day one. One creator said in a now viral video, "And something about this update doesn't sit right with me." That single sentence alone was enough to shift public perception even further. Because once creators start questioning something publicly, it spreads fast, really fast. Then came the celebrity reactions. Subtle but intentional. A tweet from a well-known public figure read, "Truth has a way of surfacing, even when it's buried deep." No names, no direct references. But everyone knew exactly what it was about. And that's when traditional media started feeling the pressure. News panels began discussing the case differently, more cautiously, more carefully, but also more critically. Why did it take this long for the DNA to become central? Why wasn't this angle explored earlier? And the biggest question of all, was something overlooked, or was something intentionally kept quiet? Because now, this wasn't just about Nancy anymore. This was about the investigation itself. Trust in the process. Trust in the narrative that had been presented from the start. And whether the public had been seeing the full picture, or just a version of it. Meanwhile, hashtags like hashtag inside the house and hashtag DNA reveals truth started trending across platforms. Millions of posts, millions of opinions, and one growing belief that this case is far more complicated than anyone originally thought. Because when the public starts questioning everything, there's no going back. And right now, the pressure isn't just on finding answers. It's on revealing the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it gets. Just when the case seemed like it couldn't get any more unstable, another leak surfaced. And this one didn't come from social media speculation or anonymous posts. It reportedly came from inside a forensic review summary that was never meant to be public. According to this alleged document, there was something investigators had quietly held back from earlier discussions. A second DNA trace, found in a completely different area of Nancy's home. And unlike the first sample, this one was cleaner, stronger, more readable. And what it revealed changed everything. Because sources claimed the second profile didn't just suggest a possible connection. It pointed toward a specific biological match category that narrowed the field dramatically. Not a random hit, not a vague familial link, but something that allegedly brought investigators face to face with a truth they weren't ready to release publicly. And that's when everything inside the investigation reportedly shifted again. Because if the second sample is accurate, then the first DNA wasn't the breakthrough. It was just the beginning. Now investigators weren't just dealing with mixed evidence anymore. They were looking at a layered scene, multiple biological traces, multiple timelines, and possibly multiple people involved. But here's where things take a darker turn. Because according to insiders, once the second profile was confirmed internally, a decision was made not to release it publicly. At least, not yet. And that silence is what's now raising the most concern. Because why would such a critical piece of evidence be held back? What does it point to that hasn't been revealed? And more importantly, who does it implicate? Online, theories are exploding again. People are connecting dots faster than investigators can confirm or deny them. Old footage is being reanalyzed frame by frame. Statements are being dissected word by word. And one question keeps repeating across every platform. Why does this feel like there's still something we haven't been told? Because now, it's not just about DNA anymore. It's about control of information, timing, and what the public is allowed to know. And just as the pressure reached its peak, a final detail leaked. One line from an internal communication. Short, cold, and deeply unsettling. It read, "Do not perceive external disclosure at this time." No explanation, no context, just silence behind it. And that silence is what's making everything worse. Because in cases like this, silence doesn't end speculation. It fuels it. And now the biggest cliffhanger of all remains unanswered. If the FBI already has a clearer picture of what happened inside Nancy's home, then the real question is no longer what they found. It's why they haven't told the world yet. And whatever comes next feels like it won't just update the case. It will completely redefine it. Before you leave, understand one thing. This story is not over. What you've heard so far is only what's been leaked, confirmed, and whispered. But behind all of this, there are still missing pieces, unanswered questions, and details that haven't even come out yet. And that's exactly why you need to stay tuned. Because the next update could completely change everything we just discussed. So don't click away. Don't assume this is the end. It's not. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications right now. Because the next reveal in this case is already building. And trust me, you're going to want to see what comes next.